All right, Schlockmeister fans, we're going to watch The Gates of Hell, otherwise known as City of the Living Dead. Let's check it out. Our movie starts with a group of people doing a seance. The next thing you know, we have a priest in Denmark who decides to commit suicide. What will the ramifications of that be? Well, as we'll find out soon enough, spoiler, doing that opens one of the gates of hell. The woman Mary then passes out.
I'm afraid Mary's dead.
When the authorities come, they warn the police. I'm sorry, they get warned that something evil is afoot. Well, then some spooky stuff starts to happen. And here's one of our stars, Christopher George. He's a newspaper reporter. And that is a coffin he's sitting over, which is the coffin of Mary, who just passed away. And here's our view from inside the coffin. Mary apparently is alive. And good thing for her, they didn't embalm her. Of course, the bad thing, of course, is that she's inside of a coffin, about to be buried, but thankfully, he heard her screams and is going to rescue her.
The night of the dead begins then. And if the portals of hell don't get shut before, no dead body will ever be able to rest in peace again. And so the dead will rise up and take over the earth. And you've got to get to Dunwich. You must reclose those gates.
Well, a few odd events occur then. This is a woman getting, I guess, squished to death by a man with worms in his hand. Now here's a couple in a car, and they suddenly see an image of that priest too. The next thing you know, her eyes start bleeding and she's puking out like everything. The boyfriend doesn't fare much better, actually. Here's Mary again.
I saw a priest who, by hanging himself, opened the gates of hell.
Here's a guy wandering around in a building, and he too is going to see that mysterious dead priest. This dude's popping up everywhere. Mary and Christopher George are now hanging out together.
Upset? Who's upset? According to your theory, we have less than 48 hours before this All Saints Day.
Here we are in a local mortuary where an old woman has died. And something bit him. There's just strange shit happening everywhere. I think that's the girl who's got worms stuck in her face. That old woman who was in the funeral home in a coffin is now on their kitchen floor.
Just imagining things. It's her, Mrs. Holden. This morning she was inside a coffin at the funeral home, and now she's here in my kitchen.
Well, here's a young couple that were together, and then when the dad found out, he freaked.
Please let me explain, Mr. Ross. I was only looking for a place to sleep.
Well, Dad is angry enough to do something about it. He doesn't like this guy hanging around his daughter. He thought the dude was a murderer, but Honestly, this seems a little extreme.
That's it.
Mary and Peter are in a cemetery.
That's the very same tombstone that I saw in my trance.
Great. Welcome to the city of the dead.
Sure.
Well, we're looking for a tombstone of a priest who hanged himself.
Father Thomas?
Next thing you know, they all get attacked by a swarm of maggots. No, no harm, no foul. A little gross, though. And then this chick gets it. With another brain squeeze. Spookiness is starting to happen all over now. First you see her, and then you don't. Our heroes are now arriving to the cemetery where they're looking for the grave of the priest who hung himself.
Guess what? It's All Saints' Day.
They find his tomb and open it on up. There's stairs inside of the tomb that lead down, and there's like a crypt down there, I guess. They found him. So they pry it off.
My God, someone must have broken in from the other side.
We're broken out.
Citizens are requested to remain in their homes.
Well, it's All Saints' Day for whatever that means.
Anyone try to reach
The dead are rising and eating people.
We repeat, do not panic. Remain in your homes.
Meanwhile, back inside the crypt, this is the end of Peter. Our last two survivors inside the crypt have to deal with marauding zombies now. And then we see the good father. Mary looks at him, and right away her eyes start to bleed. Not a good sign. Then the other dude takes a wooden cross. And that apparently stopped the eye bleeding. All of our zombies inside the crypt then go up in flames. Is that happening outside too? Our two survivors crawl out of the crypt. And he runs toward them. Then something goes wrong? I don't know. All right, let's talk about City of the Living Dead, otherwise known as The Gates of Hell. This is a movie that was around quite a bit in the 80s in video stores. It was in practically every video store in my area. I used to see trailers for this movie at the end of other tapes and stuff. And this actually showed up on cable. I want to say it was like December of 1984 or 5, and I caught the end of it. And I think it was 84 actually when we had just gotten a beta VCR, and it wasn't on anymore. Again, after that, it didn't show up ever. But eventually I ended up renting it probably within a year and copying it. So, but anyway, the movie itself, basically what happens here, the city of Dunwich, which I don't know where it is exactly, but a priest hangs himself, and by hanging himself, he somehow opened one of the gates of hell, which apparently is in his crypt, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, sorts of funky stuff start happening. Some dead people start coming to life. There's not a ton of them, though, but with those that are around, eat people, attack their back of their heads and pull out their brains. Squishy brains. That's actually kind of cool. And there's this woman who was part of a seance who gets buried alive, but she gets rescued by Christopher George, Peter. Peter rescues Mary. Then the two of them are somehow on the trail of whatever the hell is going on. They're trying to solve this case and investigate it. And somehow they figure out that they have to find the tomb, or the grave, I should say, of this father who killed himself by hanging himself, and seal up the gate of hell to make everything right again. I don't know, whatever. That's what they do. They do end up finding the crypt where he is, and it happens to come on All Saints Day, whatever that even means, I don't know. They crawl into his crypt. There's some stairs in his crypt that go down, and he's buried down there, but then they open up the tomb, and he's not in there. But then they see his, like, zombie thing image, I guess, and all these other zombies are rising. They're starting to eat people. Christopher George dies. There's this other guy who's with Mary now. Ultimately, they take this wooden cross and jam it into the priest, and then he kind of dies, or dies again, I guess, I don't know. And all the zombies go up in flames. So these two crawl out of the crypt, and by this time it's morning, and the police are there with this little boy who they had kind of rescued earlier. His whole family's like dead now. And he kind of starts running towards them, and he's all happy. And then the woman takes like an ominous look on her face, and then there's a freeze frame with the kid running towards him, and we hear a scream, and the movie just ends. Kind of fades to black like that. I have no idea what the hell happened at the end of this movie. I even looked on Wikipedia to see if they can give me an explanation as to what the ending was. They don't have one either. They just explain what I just explained to you. What happens? It fades to black. I don't know. Maybe somebody can explain this. I've never understood the ending of this movie, and I've seen this movie maybe 5-6 times in my life. I don't know. I don't get the ending. But the movie itself is filled with a lot of gore, some pretty good scenes too. Like I said, the brain squishing stuff is pretty cool. That happens like 3 or 4 times in the movie. And of course, the famous scene where the guy put the drill into the guy's head. That looks pretty damn realistic, if you ask me. No nudity in this movie, but plenty of gore. Christopher George is in this. He made a couple horror movies around this time. He made Pieces a few years later, which may have been his last movie, actually. Or was it Mortuary? That was around the same time also. But anyway, that is City of the Living Dead. Lucio Fulci made this, and it's a pretty popular film amongst horror buffs. I like the movie. I'm not a big fan of Fulci, and I'm not a big fan of Italian horror in general, but this is one of the better ones. But again, it's not my all-time favorite by any means, but it's decent, and it's pretty gory. It'll keep you entertained for 94 minutes or whatever the hell it is. So anyway, that's it. City of the Living Dead, otherwise better known by me anyway as The Gates of Hell. And check it out. Let me know what you think about it. Leave some comments. It's Gates of Hell. Watch it. Bye. And explain that damn ending to me.